You just quit your corporate 9 till 5. Now you have no money, forcing yourself to move out of your apartment in Poland and back in with your parents in England. At 29 years old. Now you're back in the country you tried so hard to escape from. You can barely put together enough cash to buy yourself a Nando's. Yet here you are, sat in your room every night, scrolling through skyscanner.net like you've just won the lottery. You make me sick. Wait. That's me. But maybe it's you too. And if it is, that's great for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's going to make me feel a lot less lonely and pathetic. Number 2, you might actually find this video somewhat useful. Maybe. Probably not. Let's see. So why am I making this video? I'm making this video because I don't think money should stand in the way of me and you living our best life as digital nomads. Basically, sometimes in life, things change. Money becomes tight, obstacles arise, things become tough. And all you have are 2 options left on your plate. You can either give it all up, return to your hometown, become a good little member of society again, continue a boring, unsatisfying life, 9 till 5 chained to an office desk, doing the same things every day in the same place for the rest of your life. Not for me. Or we can rise from the ashes, defy the odds, continue our dream of travelling the world full time by the skin of our teeth.
But AJ, how can we travel if we don't have any money?
Settle down, old bean. I'm going to walk you through the process of what I do whenever I'm planning my next trip and money's a little sparse. I have some nice tips and tricks that I've learned over the couple of years of being a digital nomad that can really minimise costs and make your money go that extra mile so you don't have to hit the pause button on your travels. I don't believe that people need thousands and thousands of pounds, dollars, euros, whatever to be able to travel the world. You can do it quite easily on a budget as long as you are kind of savvy about it. You know where to look for stuff like flights, accommodation, how to live day by day. As long as you have some money, then it's possible to still kind of maintain that traveling, at least to some extent. And I'm going to give you some hints and tips on how to do that. Okay, so step 1, budget. Always a good idea to set yourself a kind of budget, or at least have an understanding of what your financial situation is going to be like during on these travels. So say we have £800 travel budget. I already know in my head I don't want to be spending more than £200-300 per month on rent, as then it's not going to leave me enough money left over to kind of like buy things like food and other things you might need on a day-to-day basis. The more kind of specific you can be with your budget, the easier it's going to make the rest of the process. So I do advise you to kind of look into this, especially the worse your financial situation is, the less money, the more kind of particular you need to be about your budget, so you know you're not overspending in any areas and you can stretch your money just that bit further. Okay, step 2. We need to find our location. Now, you might already have some destinations in mind. Monaco, the Maldives, the moon. No, you've just quit your job. You've barely any cash. You can barely afford to buy yourself a Nando's. Use your common sense. We cannot just be going anywhere. And this is where you've got to open your mind, leave your expectations at the door, and be a bit more free with your choice of destination. And that might sound a little bit intimidating to some. You had it in your mind you're going to be spending the summer or the winter on the beach, taking beautiful pictures for Instagram, sipping on your little cocktail, eating your smoothie bowls every morning. Unfortunately, that's not always possible, determined on your circumstance. So let's just leave all that fancy stuff at the door, and let's look at what is actually possible and what isn't going to leave you feeling bankrupt. in money troubles. So we're going to head over to skyscanner.net.now, and if you don't already know this trick, then you don't know what you've been missing. It's really going to add some value to your travel toolkit of tips and tricks on how to save money, and it could also introduce you to some places that you didn't really consider for travel before. So yeah, we're going to head over to skyscanner.net, and you will have obviously the search engine at the start. You probably do already use this site to find the cheapest flights, which is great, of course, but there's a little extra feature that I like to use that can really make the difference on getting those cheap flights. Because I don't know about you guys, but I hate spending money on flights. Like, the less money I can spend on flights, the better, to be honest. So what we will do first is we will type in our closest airport, which for me is Manchester. Then this is the important part. In the next box, which it says where you're going to, if you just click into that box, then two little options should fall before, as you'll see on screen, and we're going to click explore everywhere. So this is the trick here. Then we're going to depart. As flexible as you can be here, the better. If you choose a specific date, then prices are going to be a bit more on the steeper side probably, unless you get lucky. But if you can be really flexible with your dates, then you're going to find the cheapest prices. So right now my plan is to go traveling in November. So I'm just going to click flexible dates, select the month of November, and I'm also going to do a one-way trip, and I'll figure out my route back at a later point. Albania is kind of standing out for me right now, but Bulgaria is also an option. Always good to have a couple, as you'll see in this next stage. That doesn't necessarily mean a cheap trip overall. We have to do some further research to make sure that we can afford to live there for a month. Now for the second stage of finding the perfect cheap location, we're going to head over to one of my favourite sites. It is called nomadlist.com. Obviously you can filter it by cost of living, put your budget in there, and you want it less than, and it will give you loads of options, like for example some really cheap ones to live here, or the cheaper ones are places like Chiang Mai in Thailand, so they could be viable options for you, but do be wary depending on where you live in the world. For example, me living in Manchester or near to Manchester, the flights alone are going to cost £250 each way. So that is a big expense. Whereas it might cost me a few £100s more per month to live in somewhere like Albania, but the flight is also a few £100s less. So it kind of evens itself out. So do keep that in mind. I'm going to, stick with our option of Albania, because we found the cheap flight of £14 to fly there direct in November. So yes, that's perfect for us right now. So I head over, type in Albania straight away, and we see Tirana there, the capital. £1,500 per month for a nomad. I mean, it's a lot cheaper than England, I tell you that for free. That's just as your standard nomad who just turns up in a country, probably books an Airbnb for extortionate price for a month, probably eating out every meal, stuff like that. That's on the higher end, I would say, of the average, so don't worry too much if that feels out of your budget. We can do better than that, so just take that with a pinch of salt, of course. If your budget is on the smaller side, then obviously looking at smaller towns, not the capitals, is always a good option. Here on Nomad List, they only have Tirana in Albania, so maybe do a bit of a Google search for other cities, or talk to any friends who've been there in the past. A running theme of this video is that lean on your friends that you've met traveling is always a good option, because they've probably been to some of these places and probably have more current advice for you, less biased advice, what's affordable, how to save money, where to go cheaper. Especially if you know any locals in the country, that's always an absolute winner as well. Like, reach out to them. But yeah, you can probably find much cheaper places than Tirana in Albania. So yeah, once I've got my flight sorted, I have the destination I want to go to, and it sounds to be within my budget, I'm going to find the cheapest place possible to stay that doesn't look like I'm going to be killed in. That's an important disclaimer. Money's never worth getting killed. Deep. Okay, so to booking.com we go. cross-reference and kind of evaluate which is the cheapest. That kind of ticks all the boxes for you. But again, obviously you've got to keep an open mind when we're working with a small budget. So yeah, we're gonna type in Tirana, Albania, as we say, let's go there for now. We have our cheap flight, the cost of living's relatively low, it's not too far away, and yeah, so we're gonna type in our dates. Obviously we're gonna stay there for the whole of November. So I've just put in the 1st of November to the 30th of November as an example. And yeah, we're gonna need to stay in a hostel. If you're not into that, then you're gonna struggle. If you've not done it before, then don't believe the horror stories. It's really not as bad as what some people say. So yeah, you just obviously sort by price, lowest first, and you'll start to get some options coming in. Then what I would do is kind of see how much the lowest is, and I obviously have the idea of budget in my head. Let's say my budget for this month, I don't want to be spending more than £300 on rent per month with my budget in mind. So that's obviously, I would then divide that by 30, which gives me £10 a night. So I will add that to the filter, and then we can kind of make an informed decision based on the remaining options. So obviously review score is something you probably want to be checking. If something's on a 3.2, we're probably going to avoid that for now if possible. If that's our only option, probably going to take it. But yeah, so they've got some 6.8, 7.9. I feel like these review scores are not always the most accurate. I've stayed in 8s that weren't good, and then stayed in 6s and 7s that were great. So I would read into the reviews as well. Also other factors, how close it is to the city centre, very important. Yeah, and just with them things in mind, try and make an informed decision on which one's the best for you within your budget. And then don't just book it straight away. See what your price is after the Genius discount. Find that hostel online if they have their own specific website, which a lot do, and check the prices directly through them. Can be cheaper. You could also email them, especially if you're staying for a month. Ask them if I can get a deal for booking for a month-long period. That's something I've done in the past that does work. If you want to go even cheaper than that, then it is actually possible. There's sites like Couchsurfing, Workaway, loads of Facebook groups, things like that, where you can actually stay in places for free, which is awesome. Sorry guys, but that's all we have time for this video, unfortunately. Down to the fact that I don't know how to shut the hell up, and I just let my ginger mouth run away with it most of the time, so sorry about that. But I do feel like there was a lot of stuff I wanted to get across, a lot of tips I wanted to share with you that were quite important. I already cut quite a lot of it out, so I didn't want to take out too much to kind of retract the value from the video, but I am planning to do a part 2 to how to travel without breaking the bank. So if you are interested in that, and I hope you are, then hit the subscribe button down below and let me know in the comments if you would like to see part 2 to this video and if you enjoyed part 1. And yeah, I will get cracking on finishing that off, and I will post part 2 in the coming weeks with some more great tips on how to travel without breaking the bank. And I look forward to seeing you all next time. Peace!